It's me driving in my car. I'm on my way to go pick up my kiddo from my mom and dad's house. And I wanted to tell you guys about my day. Something happened today and it made me think about things. And I was like, hey, I want to share these thoughts with y'all. So today's lesson with my one class, my basic intro to college writing class, was identifying the rhetorical situation of an article and evaluating the article's effectiveness related to the rhetorical situation. So the rhetorical situation, a lot of people are familiar with at least the words ethos, pathos, and logos, the rhetorical appeals, but they're less familiar with the rhetorical situation, which technically, if you want to be consistent, it would be kairos and telos. But in the world, we refer to them as 7 different elements. There's the scene of a text and the setting of the text. The scene being, I had to figure out how I wanted to present this to you guys right now. The scene is where something was published and how where an author decided to publish a piece impacts the claim that they're going to make. The setting is where the events of whatever they're talking about is taking place. There's audience and participants. The audience is who is going to interact with that text, who's going to read it, who will be absorbing the information from it, and how will a consideration of your audience impact what you say and how you say it. And then the participants are the individuals or groups involved in what it is that you're talking about. And then there are the author's tone, persona, and purpose. Tone, kind of obvious, like what is that overall emotional sense that you get from it? Is it like a serious piece? Is it satire? Like that. And then the author's persona, I describe it as like what version of themselves is the author creating to present to you? Like how are they building themselves up to be? Are they trying to be, funny and relatable? Are they trying to be like super serious and educated? How do they want you, the audience, to view them, the author? And what moves do they make in their writing to accomplish that? And the author's purpose is obviously like, aside from a paycheck, what did the author sit down and do this for? So anyways, that's a kind of long intro of what we did today. And to talk about the rhetorical situation and to talk about these elements, the best example that I give them is the Gettysburg Address. And so I always start out by like, okay, we all know what the Gettysburg Address is, because that's a pretty well-known document, speech, address. And I was met today with a lot of silence. Only like a few people could raise their hand and say that they had even heard of it before, that they kind of thought they knew what it was. So when I asked the students, okay, well, can you tell me what the Gettysburg Address is? After like several seconds of silence, one student raised their hand in the back of the room, and his response to me was, wasn't it that one thing with Lincoln? I looked at the class and I was like, literally right now my soul is crushing and I want to die. So that was really frustrating for me to realize that students are coming up today, and I don't want to blame the system, because I'm well aware that students don't pay attention and they don't try. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they don't teach this in school no more. What's wrong? What I am going to say is there's clearly an issue because students aren't remembering this. They're not recognizing it as an important historical thing that they should know. Traffic is kind of wrecked right now. So, but this is what it made me realize and what I kind of was thinking of. When I was in school and we took history classes, when it came to American history, we had from, the settlers coming to the New World, up through like the 70s and 80s. After that, it's not history, it's still like going on right now. There would maybe be like a chapter that we would deal with that kind of brought up to speed with the 80s and the 90s. But we were in the 90s and the early 2000s when I graduated. So it wasn't in the history books. So now the students that are going to school, they have all that same history that I learned, but they have more on the 80s. They have more on the 90s, probably more on the 70s too. You have the 70s, you have the 80s, you have the 90s, you have the early 2000s. It's 2019. You have students who were not born and don't understand 9/11. Like, I just say 9/11 and everyone's like, we know this, and a lot of people have memories of that. My students don't. If they were born, they were infants. So it's not, I don't think that it's the schools aren't teaching the history. It's that there's decades more history to talk about now. And it's not like students are going to school longer to learn it. It's not like they're being required to take more history classes. Somehow, teachers are now tasked with teaching more history in the same amount of space and having to make more tough decisions about what are we going to focus on, what will have the greatest impact to the students. And so then I was thinking, what must it have been like when we were in school, when I was in school, and we were learning history? Were there things that, like, even our teachers or our parents were like, I don't understand why they're not focusing on this anymore? When I was in school, we learned all about whatever. Like, when I was in 4th grade, we had to memorize, I don't think we memorized the entire Gettysburg Address, but we definitely remembered, like, the 407 years ago intro. So I think about how parents nowadays, like, oh, we don't like the way, like, schools aren't teaching cursive anymore. Well, okay, but they also now have 30 more years of history that they have to cover. So at some point there's going to be a give and a take, and some things are going to not end up as focused on. And I think that's a really interesting problem. The problem of history, there being so much history, and how are the school systems, how is the education system going to make sure that it's teaching what needs to be taught to produce the most educated batch of students possible. So I'm curious what you guys think of this idea, this theory that I've had. What do you see happening, even when we're dead and it's our kids who are in charge? What's going to happen then when you have, 3 or 4 more decades worth of history to do? Do you have ideas for how this can be dealt with? What do you think? I am curious. I have a couple thoughts. Right now, pretty much all colleges require students take first-year writing classes. It is a required part of any program. Do you know what's not? History. Maybe history is an elective course taken by a student who needs the credit hours in the humanities. humanities. But history is really, maybe like one history class is a required class, but history isn't really required. What if history became a required college class, just like writing? And then what do you do about the fact that not everyone goes to college? So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. I love you. I love you all. 2 videos in one day. Look at me go. Wait, did I make a video earlier? No, I didn't. 1 video in one day. 2 videos in 2 days, because I did videos yesterday. I love you guys so real very big much, and I will talk to you guys soon, and I am looking forward to seeing your comments.